If you're at your job and you're going, man, this system could be better this way, or man, if we did this, we could fix it, right? All in humbleness, right? You can't
Yes.
be going to your boss telling them that they're, a dirtbag or a punk. You got to be able to do it with tact and skill.
Hi, I'm Dana White, founder and host of One Real Story, the podcast and book series where we provide entrepreneurs with practical advice through the voices of successful entrepreneurs. If you're a veteran, aspiring, or an established entrepreneur, this show is for you. As always, I'm coming to you live from the Voice Hub production studio in Indy Atlantic, Florida. Our special guest today is an Air Force veteran and a successful entrepreneur that has purchased, owned, and sold $1 million freediving company. His story is truly an entrepreneur's dream. He married his wife and business partner, and as a team, they were able to take the freediving business from $350K a year to $1.6 million a year in just 8 years. He has stories of being an entrepreneur that goes back to the first grade. His hard work and dedication led him to create the largest free dive / spearfishing facility in the U.S. I'm sure you've seen him on YouTube spearfishing somewhere beautiful, but now he's traveling the U.S. in an RV with his wife, 2 young sons, which I'm sure he's teaching them with note cards the definition of entrepreneurship already. Coming to us via Zoom, our teleconference, my Air Force buddy and friend, Jonathan Dickinson. How you doing, Jonathan?
Hey, great, Dana. Thank you so much. That was quite the introduction, man. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. That's what we do here. So we're glad
Yeah,
to
man.
have you. So is it really true that you were successfully able to own your own business and sell it and be successful with it all in one?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, being successful is a little bit subjective, right, as to what success is.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we in our mind, in our eyes, we did what we were shooting for. So we accomplished the goals that we had set out for ourselves. It took a little bit, I think, longer than what we were expecting. We didn't necessarily anticipate some things, but it's been fantastic. We've had an incredible ride, and yeah, we're kind of living the dream at the moment, and kind of just waiting for the next big thing.
That's pretty sweet. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So like you said, the largest free
Yeah.
diving
Yes, we're the
in the
largest
US.
facility in the U.S. Yeah, so there was one other company in Australia that was bigger than us. They had 3 locations across the Australia coast, but other than that, we were the biggest in the U.S.
That's a pretty big feat. That's pretty.
Yeah, it kind of like is a little. It's crazy. Like we're just normal people. We're just average Joe. Obviously my wife's not average at all. She's amazing, but I'm just like this regular dude. And we just found ourselves in a spot where we became the authority in the sport. People would look to us, they would ask us questions. And when I say people, I don't mean customers, I mean vendors. I mean, other dive shops. People who are looking to get into the space are knocking on our door saying, how do we do what you do? And so that was a super humbling thing to be able to have people who, what I think are way bigger and way badder than I am, start asking me questions on how should they this, and how or why should they do something, this way or that way. So it started becoming this like, wow, we got a pretty big responsibility here on
Yeah.
our shoulders of maintaining some respectability, if you will.
So and you've that's pretty much a growing sport. So because I know
Yeah.
when I got into it recently, I even purchased my fins through
Hmm.
your company.
Yeah.
in my dive gear, but my freediving fins. If it wasn't for you being local, I would have known where to go to get quality fins at that equipment at that particular time. So I think your
Yeah.
advertising and marketing, and it was right on point. So
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely a growing sport. When we started, in 2012, it was people would say, "You free dive? Is that like when you jump off the big cliffs and stuff?" Like they
oh
just
yeah.
didn't understand what freediving was. And so educating the masses as well as educating our local population, there was a bunch of like hardcore guys that were the niche customer. And we were very fortunate that we were able to grow that small, tight knit group to a pretty large, substantial customer base, which was really exciting. So that in turn helped to kind of bleed out into the masses and let people know more about what this sport is. And then we got some cool things happen. Like over the years, we had some news coverage showing people what the sport is, this new trendy thing that's happening, free diving. And we're in the perfect spot for it, right? Being in South Florida, that's just doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah. Yeah. So can you explain to some of the listeners, our viewers, what is free diving exactly in your?
Yeah, great question, right? Basically, what freediving is, it's kind of like scuba, but without tanks. So the objective of freediving is to stay as long as you can under the surface of the water and basically enjoying your time. So whether that being spearfishing, so using some sort of pointy device to collect fish, taking photography, so taking pictures. A lot of people do it for depth, like they compete and they try to see how long they can hold their breath, how deep they can go. And then other people do it for more of like just a fun, recreational, relaxing kind of feat. Now, the most interesting, rather, not funny, about freediving that I find so fascinating is it's the only sport that I've found that is a complete adrenaline rush, but you have to be extremely calm, right? The more hyped up you get, the faster your heart beats, typically, then the longer or the shorter your breath hold is because you're excited. So you have to be able to calm yourself down, but yet when you enter the surface of the water and you leave that surface behind, it is an absolute thrill and rush. So that's this weird kind of battling forces that you've got going on where you're just, thrilled to be underwater and, encountering whatever it may be, a turtle or rays or sharks or whatever. And you're so excited and so pumped, but yet you've got to stay calm so that you can be there longer.
Yeah, it's a pretty great experience. I could tell
It's a
you
fantastic experience. Yeah.
when I've done it, and then you're messing around, playing around with some fins that weren't suitable for free diving, but then when you put on free diving fins, right, it's a whole
Hmm.
different experiences. You can get down to deeper depths a lot
Yeah.
quicker. Um,
Yeah. Just more efficiency. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So, when did you see the sport start to transition, and did you already have your business established at that particular time and see where you
Mhm.
had an opening?
Yeah, good
Probably.
question. So no, we did not. We owned the business. Like I said, in 2012, we purchased the shop. So it was already an established business. We did not start this business from scratch. However, the owner and his wife were a fantastic couple. They were the originators. They started the company from scratch.
Hmm.
They actually, he was pretty forward thinking in his businessmanship, if that's a word. He in the 90s took his store online, which like that wasn't a thing, right? Like e-commerce
Yeah, in the
did not
'90s.
exist in the 90s, and it was the late 90s, right? But just really pushing the boundaries of how to accomplish this. So he was out in Clewiston, which is basically like farm country. And so he started selling spear guns out of his garage. And so we were able to, he then brought the store to the East Coast where we were established in Riviera Beach area, which is kind of a little bit of a shady town, but it is what it's on the other side of the railroad tracks, if you know what I mean. But the rent
Still
was
a good
cheap.
place.
So we actually ended up picking up the business from him. So he started it in 98 or 99, and then we bought it in 2012. When we bought it, there were 2 employees and his wife and himself. So 4 people total. One of those employees actually was part-time, so technically 3.5 people total.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, they were doing about $350 a year. The main problem was they didn't have a actual system in place. So they would use QuickBooks on their computer, but nothing was actually stickered or labeled. There was nothing in inventory. They had 2 customers in their customer base.
Oh, wow.
2. So
making $350K.
Making $350K a year. So it was just primed for, 2 young entrepreneurs to walk in and just implement systems and make, processes better and put stickers on things so people can actually understand and know how much stuff is, right?
Yeah.
It was as bad as someone would pick up a mask off the wall and they would walk up and say, "Hey, how much is this mask?" They had a binder that they would open the binder up to and try to flip through and find where the mask was to tell you how much the price was. So you can imagine on a hot summer day when there's, 20 customers in the store and you're trying to sell stuff and you're looking through a binder to find your prices. Just insane.
So you've seen a great opportunity. So that just brings me to the point of you don't necessarily have to start your own business at times.
Not at all.
Keep your eyes open and you can possibly find a business that could be purchased. So how did you even bring that, that idea of like, hey, how'd
you find it? Yeah.
Are you willing to sell your business and we can improve it?
Definitely important question. So a little bit of backstory. My dad and I owned a scuba shop as well before that. So from 2007 to 2011, he bought a scuba shop and then I managed it. And then I was working with sweat equity to build up part ownership in that company. So with that's really where I learned my retail experience. It was a much smaller store than the Freedive shop. But while we were owning the scuba shop, Mike was the owner of the Freedive shop, had approached us and said, "Hey, would you guys be willing to buy Florida Freedivers?" And so at that time, I had not yet kind of gotten into the Freedive space yet.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it had existed, but I think this was like 2010 that he approached us. And we were still getting our feet wet with the scuba shop. We were still learning. We weren't ready to take on a whole nother store, whole nother location. And so we just kind of said, "Hey, no, I'm sorry, we're not ready for that yet." And so he then basically sat for another 2.5 years. And so when we sold that scuba shop, I knew he was already for sale or knew he had mentioned it and thought, "Hey, why not? Let's go talk to him and see what he says." So for us, it was a little bit of a luck and happenstance. But honestly, finding a business that is already in play is probably one of the easiest things to do as opposed to starting a brand new business. When you start a brand new business, man, no one knows who you are and no one cares.
Yeah.
So you've got to really hit it hard and you've got to be able to make a name in a space. When you buy an existing business, they've done hopefully they've done a lot of that groundwork for you. So they might already have a small customer base. You've already got people who know your name. Now, they may not know it very well, or they might not like it. They might have a bad taste in their mouth, but then that's your job to spin that around and change their perspective.
Absolutely. Great point. Great point. You just basically laid the roadmap of how you purchased the business. Now,
Mhm.
but you decided to purchase the business that you still had a passion in, right? Because you did
Yeah.
scuba
So while
diving.
I owned the scuba shop, I took a free dive class, and I actually started kind of leaving the scuba stuff behind. I actually opened within our scuba store a small section that was carrying freediving stuff. So we actually started close to the end of I think the last year. So 2011 to 2012, I started accumulating freediving gear, learning the vendors, and then sort of bringing that stuff into our scuba shop. So within the scuba diving center that we had, we started having a small corner, which then ended up becoming a wall, which then ended up becoming a room. So I kind of kept creeping on the scuba stuff. And, when we sold, the new owners brought me and said, "Hey, we'd like to keep you on for a year as an employee," which was amazing. I was able to go from 7 days a week, uh, you know, 6:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. basically, to 4 days a week, 10 to 6. So I was loving life, and I just sold the business. So I was like in heaven. But they were not all stoked on the free dive stuff. So they
Uh,
let me have it for a little while. But then as they started to see my passion shift from the scuba to free dive, they were kind of going, "Hey, Jonathan, what are you doing here, bro? Like, we're not a free dive shop, we're a scuba shop." And so that's when I really started to understand, like, my passion has shifted.
and this
I
was the
know,
scuba shop with your dad, right?
yeah,
When you
yeah.
sold the scuba shop. Okay.
When we sold the scuba shop, yeah. So that's where my passion shifted, is in the scuba shop. After we sold it, I was working with the new owners, and that's when I really just started to kind of leave the scuba side. Every chance that I had to get on the water, it was, you have a choice. Do you want to go scuba diving, or do you want to go free diving? And at that point, I always chose free diving. And so they recognized it, and they luckily, we had a great relationship with the new owners, and she pulled me into their office one day and was like, "Hey, what are you doing here? Like, why are you still working at a scuba shop? You clearly don't like scuba as much as you like freediving." And so it was one of those conversations, bittersweet, right? She basically said, "Go home and figure out what you want to do with your life," which was kind of comical
Yeah.
because, I was the old owner, and she's talking to me like a mom, which was amazing. And so I did. I went home and talked to Kelsey, and we figured it out. And we basically actually, so I left Scuba Works, and we took about a 3 month hiatus, and we actually traveled to Kenya and visited some friends. We just kind of took 3 months off from working,
Mhm.
and very intentionally hunted. We hunted for what we were going to do next. And so we didn't just, it wasn't all play. Even the trip to Africa, we were looking at, do we want to be here?
Yeah.
Do we want to move to Kenya? And then we went to a place called Mombasa on the Kenyan coast and said, do we want to start a dive shop here? So we were, even in our adventures and our travels, we were super intentional about, is this the next step? And we figured it out that the next step was not in Kenya. The next step was back home in Florida and at Florida Freedivers.
So you basically have a trend going on because you purchase your next free dive shop, existing business after your trips to Kenya, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
you took a little break, clear your mind, readjust. People dream of some of those things that you've
Yes.
achieved so far. So that is a
Totally.
level of success that some are still aspiring to get to, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So now you purchased a free dive shop and now you've sold that once again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
now you're traveling the country in an RV and you're about to do it all over again. Is that what I'm?
Pretty much, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that because, yeah, we're kind of in round three of our cycle. This is what we do. I sold the business, we went and traveled. We bought a business, we sold the business, we're off to traveling again, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny. I've mentioned this before to my dad. My wife and I, we're in the same spot we were before we bought Florida Freedivers, except for I've got a little bit more money and two kids. So we're in this same position of what do we do?
Yeah.
We know we have plenty of ways to make money. But the difference now is I don't just have to make money. I want to figure out what is my next passion. And freediving is definitely still a passion of mine, but that chapter, that chapter is closed for now, right? I've obviously got non-competes in place, so I can't go open up another retail facility for freediving, and I can't, I can teach a little bit, but it's through Florida Freedivers. So
because trade
those
secrets.
non-competes,
and you have a following.
exactly. Yes, yeah, exactly. So if I went and opened up a new business, it would be very difficult for him. It would be unfair, which is why those non-competes are in place. But and also, I don't know that I want to go back to the retail game. I was in that retail business for 11 years, and it was great. It's a lot of work. It's very people heavy, meaning that you need to trust people, which is a hard thing to do, and it's expensive, but they are the only way that you grow your business. I've said many a times, people are the best and worst thing about business. They are the only way you can grow, in my opinion, but they're the biggest headache. In my opinion,
people are people. Different,
yeah,
their own personalities.
And so my staff was amazing. I mean, we absolutely loved the people that we were able to work with and that we hired. Fantastic human beings, great at their job, but just difficult. That people have issues. I've got issues, right? And so when you start working so closely with these people, they become your family, your second family.
Absolutely.
And think about it, man. If you don't think you have a crazy family, well, it's probably just you're the crazy one, and everyone else thinks that you're crazy in your family.
That's
so
a great
everyone's
point.
family is crazy. So when you have another family, they're going to be just as crazy. But the difference is that there's a little bit of a shift in the who's Papa Bear, right? When it's the business, because I can cut you out of my family, right? Which is a weird thing, especially when you start getting so tight knit with your crew. It's a weird feeling when they start slacking or not pulling their weight. You've got to kind of remind them, like, hey, I know you're part of this family, but we have rules in this family, and you need to keep up with those rules. So we were very fortunate. We didn't have to fire too many people. We only had two people that I actually had to say, I'm sorry, but this family is not for you, and send them on their way. And it's funny, every time we did it, both times we did it, the rest of my employees were like, man, what took you so long? They know way before you ever do.
I've heard the motto,
trusting and learning.
I've heard the motto where you say, where it's be slow to hire and quick to fire, because if not, it's going to cost you as a business owner. If you don't have that capability, then or the skin to be able to withstand making those type of decisions.
But it's tough, man. It's so hard to fire fast. It's so hard.
Oh, of course.
We carry people for, months,
because they're part of the family. They're part of the family, and
they're part of the family. Yeah,
and
exactly.
they've dedicated their life to helping your dream. So sometimes it's a little bit difficult because you're thinking about the good times when they were good versus, hey, you're not pulling your weight.
You're not exactly.
So, but that just brings me to the Air Force, right? You're an Air Force veteran. What have you learned what skills have you taken away from your experience that helped you in business?
Yeah. So I've been in the Air Force now 13 years, in the reserves, obviously. I did a little bit of time, full time with the very beginning, but what have I learned? I would say, it was always an interesting shift when I would come to drill weekends, because back home, I'm the shot caller, right? Like,
Yeah.
I am the one that everyone turns to, people are looking for. There's a problem, I'm fixing it. And so I'm the guy, right?
Yeah.
And then when I show up to the base, that is not the case. I am not the guy. I am the furthest thing, right? I'm just some, lowly airman that's, looking for everybody else's approval and opinion. And, and so I think that was definitely it was very therapeutic to keeping me humble.
Yes.
Because I would get this, like, and I don't think it ever got too bad. You'd have to ask my wife if it did or not. But, you start getting these big, broad shoulders of everybody needs me, I'm the best, whatever. And maybe you don't say that, but maybe that's just how you start to feel, or you
Yeah.
vibe that way. But then I showed up to the base and got quickly reminded there are much bigger fish than I am, right? I'm showing up, not being the boss, being told what to do, being told when to be, how to be, things like that. So I think that was probably the biggest benefit for me, honestly, is it kind of knocked me down a few pegs, making sure that I keep myself in check. Um, you know,
No, that's a great
but
point, though.
yeah, yeah,
No. I think that's absolutely on point because, I experienced the same thing. I mean, now that I'm, uh, doing business and I have my own businesses and,
yeah,
and working these other angles and we're pretty successful with it. When I'm back working, sometimes it's a little difficult because when you have better ways of solving problems, you
yeah.
still have to remember the chain of command and the rank structure
Hmm.
to where you fall in line, unless you're an
Yeah.
officer making all those deals. So
Right,
I'm
right.
I'm still enlisted. Um, not
Same. Yeah.
not bad being enlisted, but you definitely it's a
No, it's a great.
humbling experience. So you would say that you've taken the best thing that you've taken away from your military career for business is learning to be humble.
I'd say that's one of them. The other things that I've learned are systems and processes and
Oh,
keeping things simple. So, and when I say systems and processes, and I don't want to take this in a negative tone, but basically kind of what not to do. And what I mean by that is there is a lot of
no, what
checks and balances, which are good.
mm-hmm.
But I heard a thing the other day. How did they word it? It was growth growth breeds complexity, complexity kills growth. So, in order to grow, things are going to get more complex. But the more complicated you make things, the harder it's going to be to grow. Right. And that's absolutely not from me. I didn't make that
Yeah.
up. That was from Craig Groeschel. He's a pastor at Life Church. He runs a leadership podcast. So a plug to him. But it's resonated with me, and that's absolutely what I learned from my military experience is um, you got to keep things simple. But if you're going to have a big organization, right? We've got 150 people at our squadron.
Yes.
Um, there has to be checks and balances. There is a level of complexity when you enter into a business with 150 people, and that's the way I view our squadron. Right? Is its own business
Yeah.
within this
Absolutely.
franchise of the Air Force, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we do have to follow Big Blue's rules, but we've got a lot of flexibility within our own squadron. And so trying to make sure that I can keep it as simple as possible in my own business so that I don't get caught up or tripped up on the steps of complexity.
That's great. That's a great point. I definitely understand where you come from with that whole concept there.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about complexity, and processes and systems are a must. You're speaking
Absolutely.
my language.
Yeah.
Background engineering, and then when you get into marketing, I just know how to build a business with
Right.
processes and systems. However, you can get too crazy with it, and
Mm-hmm.
you're hindering production versus actually and your
Yeah.
growth, right? You're stunning your growth.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand where you come from with that. So now, what tips or strategies would you give an aspiring entrepreneur?
Yeah. So, whew, I would say one of the best things that someone can do for themselves is to, um, first and foremost, right, make sure you're an entrepreneur. And what I mean by that is, um, I don't know if you listen to Gary Vee at all, but
Oh, absolutely.
he talks he talks a lot about raw talent.
Mhm.
And so he's got a saying that he says all the time that he would love to be a football star. He would love to be a basketball star. But no matter how many hours he plays football or basketball, he will never be a basketball star. Never, obviously, right? Short little dude, small guy. But he could practice for years and years and years, and it just won't happen because he doesn't have the raw talent. And at some point, he doesn't have the genetics, right?
Yeah.
So he would wager that entrepreneurship is the same thing. It is a raw talent. Some people have it, some people don't. So make sure you're an entrepreneur. And then most of the time people will know, right? Like if you're at your job and you're going, man, this system could be better this way, or man, if we did this, we could fix it, right? All in humbleness, right? You can't
Yes.
be going to your boss telling them that they're, a dirtbag or a punk. You got to be able to do it with tact and skill. But if you found yourself climbing that corporate ladder pretty quickly, and because you're a thinker, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you are an entrepreneur. But I will say, for me, obviously I'm an entrepreneur. You mentioned the first grade thing, so very quickly I'll tell that story. I'll probably be very quick with it. But basically, I didn't have lunch. I forgot my lunch that day. I ended up um, going to the front desk, asking the little secretary lady if I could order a pizza. And this is first grade, so she's like, what the heck?" And so anyway, so she let me. I ordered the pizza, got the pizza, and I sold not all the slices. I sold 90% of the slices. Paid for the pizza, tipped the driver, and got a free lunch out of it. So it was
So, hold on.
the ability
How much did
to
you sell those
overcome
slices?
and adapt.
But how much did you sell those slices for? And then, as a kid, how do
So
you even
$2 a
have?
slice.
So at first grade, and then what kind of school you went to? First grade, you having what, $10 on you in order to order a pizza? What's the
Yeah,
deal?
yeah. So I went to a Berean Christian school from kindergarten to ninth grade,
Yes.
and then I went to a public school after that. But yeah, I didn't actually have the money to pay the driver when I ordered the pizza.
Ah,
I just ordered the pizza, went to all my friends and said, "Hey, who wants pizza? It's $2 a slice," and they gave me their money. So that's the money that I walked up to the front
and that's
desk with and said, "Here's the money to
oh,
pay the pizza and pay the driver." So it,
nice.
without even knowing it, right? Like I it's really funny. I've got a good buddy of mine. At a point, he was a business partner back in the day, but he would always make fun of me because he would always say that I would build the bridge before I finish the plans, right? Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't figure out how I'm going to get all the way across, but I'd start building the bridge. And I think that that's so important, important. I think too many people get caught up in, and so here's another point for your young entrepreneurs. Don't get caught up in figuring out how you're going to finish it. Don't try to work it all the way to the end. Just start, because I can almost guarantee you, even if you do write it all out, get it all on paper, do your life map and get all this stuff going, and you think you have the end game answer, I guarantee you it's going to change.
Wow.
Right? At
Yeah.
some level, it'll shift
Yes.
some direction. It's not going to be the same. It's just not.
That's some big advice. Something that you should really take to heart, because I can even say with this podcast, I've been thinking about it for years. One Real Story has been in my playbook since 2018, and then now I'm just now getting started, because
yeah.
I'm more of a humble guy, introverted, and I feel like, hey, this is a platform for me to grow myself, as well as to expand our network and introduce the great people who come and play a part in my life. So
yeah,
this is that's a great opportunity. Now, going back to your first grade, I sold candy in maybe middle school. And one day my mom gave me $5 and I went to the store, bought candy for 5 cents, Jolly Ranchers and Airheads. And here I am, Airheads in one pocket, Jolly Ranchers in another. And I flip it and I make more money. Now, granted, I didn't come from money, or I didn't have the luxury of getting money the legal way that I was trying to make sure I stay out of trouble, but I improvise, right? There was no legal implications from that, and it just naturally happened. So I guess when you're saying some of the talent and you think outside of the box, that's where it's more suitable for those. Now, my little pushback or rebuttal to that is, you don't know unless you try, and you put in work, because entrepreneurship, no matter if you have talent, raw talent, you have to stick with it with focus and dedication, because there are going to be some ups and downs, and there are going to be times where you want to quit.
100%.
But you have to have
more
that
downs
tenacity.
than ups, I'd
say. Right? But you stay strong, and all that will come to fruition. All right. So what are your
plans? The ups are big ups, is what it is.
Absolutely. So John, what are your plans now for the future and projects or business?
Good question. So to be very honest, I don't know.
And that's okay.
Like I said, we're kind of in that same spot that we were before we bought Florida Freedivers. We're really just kind of searching. So we've got the RV. We've got a small YouTube channel that we're just throwing videos up, really for just friends and family to kind of follow us along and see where we're at, as opposed to trying to keep up with everybody. But we've started that. I have no idea where that's going to go. But it's not an RV specific channel. It's more like a travel channel, because we don't plan to be in the RV forever.
Yes.
In fact, in December, we're leaving for Kenya again. We're going to go back to Kenya and spend some time with my buddy out there. So I don't know. We've got probably the next year and a half planned out or so. So from now, we're traveling in the RV till December. We'll go to Kenya in December, probably till February, come back from February, and then we're going to do the West Coast of the States. So February to April, maybe May.
So you're living the life.
I deploy this year. So I'll come back in May, deploy with the Air Force for a couple months, and then when we get back from that deployment, that's when things will really start to be looked at in a hard and fast way, trying to figure out, okay, where do I do another business? I think at the moment, I'm looking more so to real estate than anything else. We still have our commercial building that we own down in Palm Beach. And so I think that's probably where I'm going to go, more residential real estate. We've done a few things residentially in the past, and they've worked really well for us. It's a great investment,
Okay.
super easy if you do it right, and that'll probably be where we set for the next 5 to 8 years.
Sounds great. Sounds like a great plan. Well, Jonathan, well, look,
Thank you.
love to have you back on the show again. Do you want to let
Yeah,
everyone
absolutely.
know where to find you?
Yeah, so my personal Instagram is Jonathan.boaz. So JONATHAN.BOAZ. But you can also check out our YouTube channel. It's Thebravebunch. So that's our channel that we're kind of showing our life on right now. And that's really it. We don't really have much going on besides the YouTube channel and my personal Instagram. So that's it.
Sweet. Awesome. As always,
Yeah.
thanks again, John, for your time today and sharing your stories.
Yeah.
To our listeners, thank you for your
Absolutely.
time. Let us know what you think of our show and stay tuned. There's more to come with our book series and episodes. If you have any questions or if you would like to continue to be inspired, you can always find us at onerealstory.com. Now, remember, I'll end with this. Remember, without no struggle, there's no progress. Thanks again.